Hi team, and welcome to iCode After School. My name is Olga, and in this training, I will go over our educator's guide to make sure you have everything you need to succeed in the class. And please be sure to read your educator's guide as it will have a lot more detail that is very important for you to know. And this training is just a summary of the guide. Let's get started. So, what are we all about? What does the program teach and stand for? So, those are our core values: creativity, discovery, and self expression. In every project we do, we want to make sure kids have a little bit of time to discover, add maybe something onto their project, think outside of the box, express themselves creatively, and just have fun. This is all it is about. And besides coding, some of the very valuable skills we teach in a class that go beyond just programming, of course, are problem solving. Kids will face endless problems and bugs in the projects that they're working on. And we just keep reminding them that all problems can be solved if they just keep working and looking for that solution. And any big problem can be broken down into smaller problems that could be easily solved. Those are very important skills to take with them outside of the class into the real life as they keep, growing and facing other challenges. Persistence, that ties back to problem solving, be prepared to make mistakes and, make sure to stay persistent and you'll find all the solutions you need. Learn from your mistakes and make sure to avoid them in the future. That's all coding and debugging and trying to avoid those bugs in the future is all about. Creativity, as I mentioned earlier, we encourage kids to incorporate their own ideas in all the projects we're working on, experiment with new, whether it is coding blocks or projects, and build upon ideas of others. This is how the Scratch community was built to begin with, right? Collaboration is an important aspect of the program. Whether working individually or in small groups, kids will have a chance to work as a team, solve some projects together, compromise, agree on what the right solution is. It is a valuable skill that the program teaches. And of course, it ties very well to communication. In this class, kids will have an opportunity to explain the solutions for the problem, make sure they explain it in a way that is really easily understood by other students in the class. They'll receive and provide feedback and make sure to incorporate it in the project they're working on. Those are all valuable skills. So please make sure to keep that in mind as you keep going through the lesson plan and teaching it to kids, that those are very important skills we want to communicate to kids as well. So we covered a little bit of, just general topics, general skills kids will be learning in class, but what the class will look like. So right now I'm just going to go over the basic step-by-step of the flow of what is expected of you and what the class will look like. First of all, prepare before going to the class. Make sure you're prepared. Arrive at least 15 minutes before the class. When you come to the classroom, set up for the class, and kids start coming into the class, make sure to take attendance. No kids who are not registered for the class should be staying in the class, as they might be lost. They might be expected to be somewhere else. So just make sure that only students who are registered for the class actually attend the class. Make sure to keep the discipline in the class. And with this, of course, there are so many different tools we can use. I mean, first of all, kids come after a very long day at school, so they do have extra energy, and we just need to help them to manage it appropriately in the class. With this, kids are usually, start acting up if they're bored. So make sure you assign, appropriate tasks to kids. If the task is too easy for them, please make sure to differentiate and add, ask them to do a little bit of an extra, whether it's projects or work, make sure it's challenging enough for the student, or even give them time to experiment and continue developing the project that they're working on. If it is too difficult and they just feel like they cannot manage it, you can pair them up with a student who is a little more advanced, help them out, just spend some one-on-one time, or have a group discussion to see if we can all as a group solve the issue that the student is facing. Either way, keep it positive in a class. If you are explaining rules, make sure you're not just talking at kids or what the rules are, but also explaining the logic behind them. Keep a fun language. I always like to say, instead of, don't run, I'll just ask kids to walk slowly. This positive language is very important. If you see someone doing a great job in the class, please make sure to, give them a little extra attention, make sure that they acknowledge for their good behavior, whether it is, I love how Ian finished the project he's working on. Now he's helping his classmate. Or I love how Ian, has finished the project he's working on, and now he is building on and adding on some additional, blocks to it, let's say. If it's getting a little kind of loud in the class and you need to grab everyone's attention, your educator's guide has a handful of attention grabbers that you can use. You don't have to use them all at once, just pick one or two of your favorite and use them throughout the class so kids get used to it and know exactly what to expect. It could be as simple as clapping the rhythm, so and have kids repeat it, or 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Or, I sometimes, if it's getting too loud, I'll say catch a bubble, and kids are supposed to catch a bubble with their mouths, which ultimately stops them from talking, loudly in the class. So what the class structure will look like, let's dive a little bit deeper into that. As I mentioned, kids come in, you take attendance, then you go over iCode attitude code, and I like to do it at the beginning of each class. Usually on the first day of class, I'll introduce it to the kids, and then come second, third, and so on, fourth classes, I'll try to ask them, do you remember what's our attitude code? Like, what are the 4 main points of our iCode attitude code? And this is what it is, I'll switch slides just to go over our code. Programming is creative and fun. It is okay not to be able to solve a problem on the first try, but if we keep trying, we'll find a solution. Kids will be faced with all kinds of difficulties they won't be able to figure out, or find the bug or solve the problem. And I just keep reminding them struggle is good, it helps them grow and learn, so it is a positive experience. And of course I'll say, hey, even if you cannot solve this particular problem, all we're learning here is the core concepts. We're learning to read the code and predict the outcome. We're learning the basic concepts that are underlying and are the same in all the coding and programming languages, such as algorithm, loop, sequence. Those are the things that they really need to focus on. And as long as they keep trying, they're succeeding at the goal of the class, which is understanding coding a little bit better each day we try. So let's go back. So we go over our attitude code, then we'll jump into the lesson plan. Lesson plan is already divided in all the sections that you need to pay attention to. It has objectives for the class. It has vocabulary. So every class will be introducing some new language, and you want to make sure you keep using that language, keep reinforcing it. If it is our second, third, and so on, fourth class, we will go over concepts we learned in the past class to make sure that kids I still remember them. Then we will dive into the actual coding project. If there are some unplugged activities, they will be, the lesson plan will guide you to when is the appropriate time to complete unplugged activities. And of course, we'll, kind of wrap it up with summary of what we've learned in the class. After the class is over, I'll have kids lined up for dismissal. It is very important that dismissal is handled in an organized manner. Everyone should be lined up one by one, and kids should be escorted to the dismissal point. Never leave child unattended. So if parent is late for pickup, please wait with the child to dismiss it to the school authorities to make sure that all the kids are always accounted at any point during the class or after. When parents come to pick up a child, it is very important that the kids not just run off to see them or to greet them, that the parents actually come to you and sign off for the pickup. After all the kids are dismissed, I return back to the classroom and clean it up if needed. Put chairs away. If we moved any things, I'll return everything to the original order. It is very important that we leave the classroom the same way we found it, as school is gracious enough to let us use their space for our program, so we want to be very respectful of it. We already discussed our attitude code, so let's move on to some important policies and procedures. Punctuality is one of them, and it ties back to safety being one of our top priorities, obviously our number one priority, right? Um, uh, because if you're not at the school at least 15 minutes before the class, kids might be left unattended because usually that's the time they're already done with their regular schedule and they're walking to the classroom, so they're expecting someone to meet them there and to supervise. So if that's not, happening, this could cause some, just, some issues with behavior and just cause a safety issue for us. So if it is a brand new school and you've never been at the school, please make sure to arrive at least 20 or 30 minutes before the class so you can figure out the parking situation, make sure that's not an issue for you. Find the classroom you will be teaching in, sign in with the main office. You might not know where it is at, and so on and so forth. If you driving to the classroom, please make sure that you check the traffic way ahead of time, and this, everything included, you can arrive to the classroom at least 15 minutes before the class. If for some reason you arrive less than 15 minutes before the class, you're considered to be late for the program. If you're late for the program and we hear from about it from the school, it makes it for a very difficult conversation. If the school calls us 10 minutes before the class and our instructor is not there, and we don't know what's happening, then everyone is kind of in a panic mode. If you call us and and you explain that, for whatever, this emergency happened and you will be at the school, but not 15 minutes, but 10 minutes before the class. So when the school calls us, we already know exactly what's going on. We're in a loop and we can tell them, our instructor is just pulling up the school. They will be there momentarily. That makes a very different communication with the school. So please be sure to be at the school on time, which is 15 minutes before the class, or let us know if for whatever reason you're running a couple of minutes late. We do understand that, from time to time you might be needing to take time off for the days that you're scheduled to teach. Please let us know as soon as possible, but no later than 48 hours before the scheduled class. If it is a true emergency, maybe you're waking up feeling sick on that day, call us, email us, make sure you talk to one of our coordinators no later than 9 a.m. of the day of the class. And make sure you actually get the response. If you're emailing, make sure you receive the reply to your email. If you're calling, make sure you didn't just leave a voicemail, you talked to someone. So we informed of, what's happening as soon as possible. Some emergency may arise, who knows whether it is a weather or, any other kind of emergency situation at the school. It's hard to predict everything, and we hope that nothing will happen, nothing bad will happen, but of course it's better to be prepared. If I can give you one advice is, if student safety is at risk and you don't know what to do, just call 911 and have a professional walk you through the steps that need to happen to keep students safe. Another important point during the time of panic or emergency is to keep all the students accounted for and keep calm. Child abuse prevention is an important topic given that we do work in the schools. Make sure to minimize any physical contact with the child. We understand, high five is acceptable from time to time, or pat on the shoulder, but overall physical contact should be kept at a minimum. You do not exchange any contact information or contact the child outside of the school. In the school, you should never be one-on-one with the child. You should be in the room with other adults or children present. All the doors and windows, if there are any, should be, the room should be visible. If there are windows in the classroom, it's okay to keep the door closed. If there are no windows, please keep the door open. If for some reason noise issues or something else, the door needs to be closed, make sure there are at least 2 adults present with the student. We do not allow any profanity in the class from our instructors or students. So please, if there are any issues that are happening in the school consistently, or you suspect some inappropriate behavior in or outside of the school, and you notice some sign of that, please, it is very important that you report it to us or the school as soon as you find out. Let's keep it fun, light, and keep our kids and students safe. Let's move on. So I wanted to also introduce some teaching techniques that are very useful in a class, especially coding class. something you might have heard already. Some of those you might have used already. You can read Educator's Guide, and it will have a lot more detail about each and single technique. So I will just kind of go over it in general. Pair programming will allow two students to work together and switch their position. One is the driver, one is kind of directing the driver. So it's a useful tool, and it helps maybe you to pair up a student who maybe of different skills together so they can support and help out each other, or it is a needed technique when maybe the school does not have enough computers for everyone to work independently, so students can work on projects together, and it actually makes it for a really fun time for them as well. Authentic choice, it ties back to the creativity and self-expression that we've discussed earlier as our core principles and values. In any project we do, as long as there's an opportunity for kids to do something of their own, I give them that opportunity. So if, let's say, we're doing a project in Scratch, I let them pick their own sprite or backdrop and just add their own twist to the project we're working on. And at the end of the class, it's really fun to watch who are the characters or sprites that the kids picked, and what's the kind of how their project is different from anyone else. Unplugged activities are very important and helpful and help kids to understand the concepts that they learn in coding and how they relate to the real world, of world outside of coding. So the example I like to give for unplugged activities, for example, is one of the activities we do in the earlier lessons during the class is we'll write an algorithm for making peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So algorithm is a new word and term that the kids learn in the class, but how does it apply right outside of coding? So we do this unplugged activity when they write an algorithm or step-by-step guide to how to put together a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and we say, imagine I've never had to do it before, so I follow your algorithm exactly to the T. Is it gonna work, or are there gonna be bugs that we get to solve? That ties me back to the next technique is debugging. Honestly, it's one of the most valuable skills kids can learn in a coding class, because as a programmers, if they become programmers, that's what they will spend most of their time doing, looking for bugs and fixing them. So there are two ways you can do it: actively and active debugging and reflective debugging. Active debugging is something I encourage during the class. Every time we add a new block or a couple of blocks, I encourage kids to test their code to make sure it's doing exactly what it needs to be doing. Reflective debugging is when we look for the problems in the code, discuss how they happened, and prevent them from happening again. This ties me back to another really fun technique that we use in the class. I call it bug talks. When we look at the code that already has a bug, and kids can try to figure out what the bug is, and we have an active discussion. Everyone shares their opinions, and then we vote on what the solution is. Of course, we put this solution in our kind of bug tracker, you can say, where we track all the common problems or bugs we run into, and this helps us prevent them from happening again. So those are really fun. Please read your educator's guide, as it will have a lot more detail on those teaching techniques that are very helpful in the class. And early on, as we were talking about the skills that the kids learn in the class, I talked a little bit about major concepts. And those are concepts that kids can learn in our coding class, whether they're coding, in Scratch or HTML, CSS, whatever other language we use. And they can take those concepts, and as long as they understand them really well, they can take them to any coding language or any programming language they will learn in the future. So make sure to emphasize those concepts every single class, and make sure the kids have a very good understanding of what those concepts mean. So sequence, loop, event, variable, algorithm, condition, binary, and debugging. Those are again outlined in your lesson plans and educator's guide. Just please be sure to reference them frequently and make sure kids have a great understanding of what those are. That actually wraps up our training. Thank you so much for listening. Again, your educator's guide will have a lot more detail, as well as the lesson plans we provide. We hope this makes your experience with us, easy and fun, and you'll have a great time in the classroom. Have a great day, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.